The future and present of State Street. This morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. Actually, we'll be talking to Downtown Madison Incorporated President Susan Schmitz about the future of Downtown Madison. But given the recent discussion Mayor Paul Soglin has begun again about the future of State Street, to say nothing of the major changes already underway on that street, we'll begin our State of the Downtown report with that, as I welcome back to For the Record DMI President Susan Schmitz. Welcome back, pal.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Neil. Especially to talk about my favorite street.
Well,
and all of our favorite streets.
And you know, over the years we've spent so much time talking about it, but it's always nice to be reminded that this has a bigger context, I think, than what a lot of people think about when they just think about Downtown Madison and they think about State Street. So, you know, to the extent that there's so much going on East Washington Avenue and on Willie Street, and you know, and on the campus end of the downtown. I want you to help us kind of think through the current conversation about State Street, what's going on State Street, and how it fits with your long-term plan and strategic plan for the downtown.
Well, it is in a context of a larger downtown. That is true, and the downtown is growing. We see that growing all the way from the stadium right out to the Yahara River. I mean, there's lots of expansion going. That's the area we kind of look at. But there is this jewel of a street called State Street that we all have memories of and we love, and it's our little street, and it represents. So it represents us as a community because, of course, it was built, I don't know, 150 some years ago, and it has represented our community. Like, my great-grandfather owned a livery stable on State Street in 1898. I mean, he closed it in 1898 because then he went and opened a men's clothing store because cars came into the economy. And I had a great uncle who owned a boarding house where Sacred Feather is right now. So, you know, that the street has been used by the community in so many different ways. And if you really look at the history and watch it, it's so fun. Because
I lived on top of Paul's Club 40 years ago. Oh, sure.
Oh, see, there you go.
And on top of what's now Walgreens on the...
And it used to be Rent-A-Bombs, remember? All the Walgreens were Rent-A-Bombs, and just about every corner we had a pharmacy that had a cafeteria. So people don't have those anymore. So it seems like we, just about every 20 years or so, it's almost like a generation, we have these conversations like, ooh, what about State Street? Is it going negative, or is it going south, or what? Is it going to be okay? So the fact that the mayor wants to have a discussion about it, that's great. I think it is time. It is time because we have never seen so many housing units coming in our downtown, in the greater downtown, and that's our retail street. Although we're seeing retail in mixed-use development, you know, in different development
And I don't think we've got pictures of these developments, unfortunately. I don't know if you can describe what's going on the lower end of State Street.
Oh,
it's pretty dramatic change.
It is.
I mean, just in terms of the scope of the building. But that's an example of some of the mixed use, and there's going to be retail in there.
You're talking about the hub. Right. Huge.
Interesting name for a
interesting name, right? Huge. What is it? 396 units or something like that, and it's high end. It's anyone can live there, but it's geared to students. So, and think about that change. How did you live when you were a student? I didn't live like that. It's like, I mean, so things are changing. Look at the development at U Square. I mean, and how successful that has been. And that was just kind of a one-story, didn't really know what that use was there. And now you've got retail on the first floor. You have the high-end student housing, and that can support the Madison market. The fresh market. I mean, that grocery store does
downtown
great.
grocery store,
It does a
yeah.
great business, and there's parking there. So things just continue to evolve. And
Well,
20 years from now, people will be having this conversation again
Yeah.
and saying, so what's happening downtown? And so
Right.
that's a good thing.
Well, and that's probably a good example. When I was thinking about the density of people actually living on State Street, a lot of these people may have lived just a block or two away, but now they're living right on the street. And when you think about great downtowns in great cities
Yes.
that are bustling and safe 24 hours
Yes.
a day because of the density,
Yes.
so now you've got these people who might be looking to shop at midnight
Yes.
or looking to do their laundry at
Yes.
1:30 in the morning, and you've got more street traffic. Is that kind of what we're going to see
Yes,
here?
yes, we are, because the demographics are interesting. It is people like us, Neil. We still are liking to move downtown,
Right.
but then there's the young professionals, the millennials, if you want to say, a lot of the epic folks and whatever, who want to live downtown. And it's interesting when you dig into the data on how they want to live. They want to live in a very small footprint. They want to be able to go only 2 or 3 blocks to get anything they want. They don't have cars, they ride their bikes, but they want to walk, but they want to be in the middle of all of this activity, and they want to be able to get there quickly. So that's why there's just been a shift in the merchandise, if you want to say merchandise, or just shift in the retail mix. So the mix in terms of people always ask about this, the local
Right.
versus chains,
Right.
that has remained about the same for decades. It's 84% are locally owned, so it's higher than people think. So it's not like the chains are taking over or anything. That has stayed pretty stable. But and then also restaurants and bars, that's increased a little bit over the last, I'd say 15 to 20 years, a little bit. But the biggest change we've seen is the reduction in retail, like you might say soft goods, like your clothing and stuff like that.
Right.
And there's been an increase in services. So see, what is that telling you? Because the people living downtown are demanding more services. I mean, there's workout places that there never were before.
Right.
There is a demand, I think, for a swimming pool, and hopefully we can get that
Interesting.
somewhere downtown, because these people would like that. There's one at the retirement home, but that's the only one downtown. So that's something else that we hear from the people who are in real estate, that what people are looking for. And we're going to see more grocery stores, and we're going to see smaller ones. One is being done on Broome Street over in the Bassett neighborhood. There's a small, just kind of a neighborhood grocery store that's going to
great.
be developed. I know. It's great because it's becoming a really true dense neighborhood.
Okay, we got to take a break, but we're going to continue our conversation of Madison's iconic State Street with Susan Schmitz.
It's got good stuff.
I am back with Susan Schmitz, the president of Downtown Madison Incorporated, and we are talking about State Street, although Susan brought with her the State of the Downtown 2014, which is a really interesting report on activity downtown, who's going downtown, the impact of the businesses downtown. And it's available on the DMI website. But in the context of this conversation, what would you highlight in here, Susan?
Well, there are a couple of, we have call-out numbers in here, as you can see. And we have been doing this for 4 years, so we want to see trends,
Right.
To get a sense of what's happening. So just like on an average, over 6,300 people attend the weekly services in places of worship in downtown Madison. I mean, something like people would go, really?
Right.
Really? Okay. But then we also watch the vacancy rate in terms of rental, and last year it was actually just a tiny bit below 2%, which is very dangerous in a way. Not
Really
dangerous,
too low.
but people like to see it at about 5%. Well, now it's at 3.2%, so you know that you can see with the cranes up
And
there.
and what that says is that we can still accommodate more housing units downtown.
Yes, we can. And then the commercial rate, then that usually follows the rental, the housing, and that was at a little bit high. It was at 17%, and that has come down some. Now it's at 15%. So, you know, to watch these kind of numbers, it's interesting.
Susan, I know you have a sort of long-range plan for State Street. As we see what's going on there with the residential tending to congregate on the lower end of State Street, and then some of the development that was spurred by Overture
Yes.
on the upper end of State Street. Are we beginning to get a look of what the street's going to look like in the next couple of decades?
Sort of. I think.
Could there be more housing on the upper end?
I think there could be, and I think we're going to see other small pockets of possible retail on the first level, like maybe down Gilman Street or more on, and there already is some on Henry, you know, around the corners, because I think there's going to be a demand for a lot more services. I mean, there's a place going in to the Glass Bank, you know, that has been refigured, you know, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building. A place going in there called Archipocathy, where you can go and get your hair blown out. I mean, this is a big deal in big cities. You can go, you can walk in and get a blowout. You can walk in and get a manicure and a pedicure, and these places are busy as can be. I mean, that's a business that didn't even exist 5, 10 years ago.
Now, what are the chances they'll be open until 9 or 10 o'clock at night?
I would say yes.
So people are now walking there before they walk to
a lot of the younger generations to the club, to clubs, because we actually need more music clubs. I think that's something that we've been hearing about from, especially from the realtors who are selling and who are selling the condos, and there aren't many condos left to sell, by the way, and they're helping to fill the rentals.
So I think we're expecting that will be at least part of the starting block development.
Yes.
There's been talk about another one further down that didn't get approved yet, but there's probably room for it on East Washington Avenue, which raises the question then of the relationship between State Street and the Square and East Wash and probably Willie Street to an extent. Are you comfortable with how that's being kind of looked at comprehensively, and then it raises transportation questions?
Bingo. Thank you for mentioning transportation. Yes, we are comfortable with it. I mean, the city and planning and transportation division and stuff, they understand that. There's a little bit of a barrier, and that would be Blair. So I think people talk about that. That's actually a highway. So, and you know, there's been conversation about the intersection down at the entrance to Willie, and you know, that John Nolan Drive.
The potential for that just blows me away.
I know. And what Neil is talking about, you guys, for the audience here, is that maybe we could put something underneath, so then that the land above it on the lake can be given back to the public. And so we don't have that going through, because that's a terrible intersection.
Build the marina there.
Wouldn't that? I know, it would be fabulous. And then you come up and maybe enter and get onto East Washington Avenue. So
we'll do another show on that one.
Yeah, we'll do another show. Actually, yes, because that's being talked about. It really is. I know people talk about it being expensive, but you have to dream. Yeah, you have to dream.
And it's not undoable.
So then it would be a little more seamless for people to walk back and forth to the Central Business District from the East Isthmus, because crossing Blair is kind of tough. And then transportation, you're talking about, the city has been just fabulous at the bike infrastructure. This B-cycle has been the best thing, and the B-cycles now are going, that's that shared bicycle program, and they're all the way from Edgewood College out to Obrich Gardens. No, actually, they're all the way to Hilldale. To Hilldale, so, and that's for those short trips. And people love those. They just love them.
All right, I think let's take the break now, because
Okay.
when we come back, I really want to address specifically some of the issues that Paul Soglin's raised. We're going to talk
Sure.
about alcohol and some of that stuff right after
Sure.
this with Susan Schmitz.
Thank you.
The topic is State Street in downtown Madison, arguably one of the most visible assets that Madison has, one of the things we're really known for. And my guest is State Street's boss, Susan Schmitz.
No, I don't know. I think the public is the boss of State Street.
And
That's
actually,
good.
there are some longtime business owners on State
Oh,
Street
yeah.
that have taken care of that street
They have.
for a long, long time. Now, let's get though to, I mean, the mayor has raised some really important issues having to do with density of establishments that sell alcohol in particular. I don't know if restaurants are necessarily a part of that, but let's start with the obvious, which is alcohol and some of the problems that have
Sure.
occurred occasionally on State Street as a result of that.
Sure. I think some of the problems that have occurred in the past have come from the high capacity, what we would call vertical drinking, student bars. And they're clustered on Lower State Street and University Avenue, and that can be a challenge, and there have been some challenges with that. That can be a challenge at bar time when people who have been drinking for a long time they come out onto the streets.
A
and
lot
you
of them,
could
in
have
big numbers, yeah.
Big
Yep.
numbers, because you're talking maybe 600 people coming out at one time. So we've worked a lot on that, and I think that that's gotten under control. The police are part of that, have been part of that conversation, and things are just better in terms of that particular area. But we have not there has not been an increase in those high capacity vertical drinking student bars. What there has been is a demand for more liquor licenses, but that's generally for restaurant. Right, or even small places like this, like you take some of these small delis and specialty places, they need an alcohol license if they're going to sell some wine.
Right.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all in terms of alcohol licenses.
And for example, and I'm not conversant in this, but I think one of the planned new places on State Street is a craft beer
Yes.
place.
Yes.
Has, like, I don't know, 300 taps, which
Yes.
sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about craft beer as opposed to another type of establishment, does that tell you what you would expect in terms of likely problems and who's going to be using that place?
Right. It's different.
And then do you need the flexibility
it's-
to judge these individually?
I think you do. You do.
Do quotas work, for lack of a better word? Like, we're going to have X number of establishments and that's it?
Well, not really, because it's not apples and apples. They're not all the same. So there are different type of alcohol licenses that you do apply for.
Right.
Like the restaurants apply for a type where the food is more than 50% of their volume, and that
Right.
I don't think that's the kind of license that the mayor is really talking about, because food's a big deal. Food's a really big deal, and it's
yeah.
getting bigger and bigger. And
Actually, to his credit, he's become a food guy.
a foodie, right? He has a food policy person on
Yeah.
his staff and everything, it's all good. It's very exciting for this region. I mean, we're getting known for that, which is good, for our great food and the local food and everything.
I mean, DMI spends time with Chief Koval and his staff, right?
Absolutely.
How would you
Absolutely.
characterize their perspective on this?
They look at the laws, the ordinances, the laws, what governs, what is required of establishments that have alcohol licenses, and they are at this time anyway. I don't know of any that they're not supportive of, and of course, but they also police to what the community wants. So, but we have good laws in place and if an establishment doesn't follow those laws, they don't get their liquor licenses renewed. And that has happened in the past, and it was for the right reason. And there have been some places that closed that were problems on the street. In fact, I'd say a while ago, there were, might be about 10 years ago, there were some establishments that were just not good actors on the street, and they closed because of the laws, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, when you say they focused on the laws, of course it makes sense because that's how they allocate resources.
That's right, right.
All right, I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you to look ahead to 15 a little bit, just in terms of DMI's priorities, Susan. What are you looking to see?
Well, we're looking to see a lot of these housing units finish up and open. There's a couple of really exciting ones. I mean, the Hub will open, and then Ovation, this beautiful higher-end rental unit on Johnson Street,
yeah,
right, that will open. And so we're looking forward to that. But what we're looking forward to is what that's going to bring to the downtown marketplace in terms of retail. And when I say retail, I mean restaurants and services, and whether it be soft goods or gifts or whatever it is. It's going to be interesting to see what the demand is. And so I think we're going to see businesses we've never seen before.
Well, I was going to ask you about
exciting.
that. And if, to the extent that they're local or not, do we have some control over that, or do we really need to let the market operate here? I know we want as many local as we can, but is there a way to support local businesses coming in there? Or? Well,
some of it happens naturally because of, and this gets a little more complicated, but a lot of times your nationals that come in, not always, but a lot of times they need a large footprint. Okay, well, we don't have large footprints on State Street, so they're smaller footprints.
And we
so
can control that if we want to, right?
So they tend to lend themselves to maybe the possibility of someone local running it. So, yes, but to a point, I think there's some of the footprints are like super small, like they might not even function well because they're so small. But there's something to that.
Yeah.
We want to keep that feel of the small shops. We want to keep that feel of the people walking along the street, being real close to the door and to the windows and stuff. We want to have that pedestrian feel.
Susan, thanks. I really enjoyed this.
This was so much fun. And go shop on State Street. It's really busy this Christmas.
That's a smart move. We'll come back and wrap it up right after this.
Thank you.
My thanks to Susan Schmitz. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you next weekend on For the Record.